Synchronicity, a meaningful coincidence of two or more events where something other than the probability of chance is involved. C.G. Jung. All right, everybody. Welcome to my channel, and today I have a guest. His name is Connor Dahlin. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. I recently found his YouTube channel. He's got a lot of great videos. They're lengthy, so they're around 45 minutes or longer, and I should put that in the description box, but I'll send you a screenshot of the info at the end, and I'll put the description of his YouTube channel in the description box after the video. For those of you watching on my alternative YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, my main YouTube channel got another copyright strike for a video I did a long time ago, and I'm going to show you that right now. Oh, no, that's Minecraft. Give me a second. Why can't I see the browser? All right, here it is. So it's on the Isaac Cappy Reveals Hollywood Pedophilia and More. So all that was just him going off, and I got a strike for harassment and cyberbullying. So you'll no longer be able to see or hear what Isaac Cappy said in that first reveal of his. So too bad. If you want to watch that, you're gonna have to go to my alternative channels. LBRY probably has it. Won't take it down. Yeah, and you might be able to find it in like some of the other parts of the interweb. Anyways, enough of that. Let's focus on our conversation. I found your channel a week ago, and I think it has fewer than 200 subs, but there's a good amount of views. And I just think that the amount of information that you put out there and some of your own thinking of things as well, piecing things together, is just really well done. A lot of things that I've looked into and agree with, and like, wow, how did I like YouTube usually recommends very mainstream channels. So how I found you, I don't know, but I just listened to your stuff, and here we are. Thank you for coming on my show, and please introduce yourself.
Under the channel CG Dahlin, mostly, I would say, hour-long segments of different talks on collaborative religion, comparative religion, spirituality, all topics of spirituality, non-bias. For those that are wishing to learn more occult, esoteric topics, for those that describe themselves as nots or as nothings on their surveys. It's a place to kind of divulge into the deeper parts of life without somebody proselytizing you the whole time or ascribing a certain paranoid mind frame towards the whole thing. Personally, I'm just a guy that's been hired a time or two to be an educator, and got lucky enough to come to the opportunity of making this content. The people that show up, I interpret, are those that are kind of trying to figure out what they believe in this mess of the modern age. There's a lot of topics to get into as to why that is, but yeah, that's I'm also somebody who's been affiliated with many different religious circles, from sanghas to sanctuaries to anipes to pagan rituals. I mean, all sorts of weird stuff. So it's just more of like, hey, let me share what I know for those that actually want to know it. I guess that's probably the best intro I can give.
In your upbringing, were you raised as in a certain type of religion, or?
Yeah, I was baptized as an infant, you know, and I was raised under the, I guess you could say, non-denominational Christianity along the lines of Presbyterian, maybe Baptist, depending on what family line we're talking about. Uh, so yeah, I was raised in that context. Learned quite a bit of what I'd use later on the Bible during that time, and had a big falling out with it at the age of 11 was my kind of cracking, and from that point forward, it kind of sent me on the search for what else was out there.
Would you box yourself in right now with any type of religion that you're in, or spirituality or something like that?
um, I there are certain So instead of getting into the nitty gritty about all the details of what somebody believes, I like to look at the effects of those beliefs. So would I rather hang out with somebody who tends to be very proselytizing, tends to be very aggressive, tends to want everybody to believe what they believe? No. Versus somebody whose beliefs turn them towards earth centricism, allowing other people to believe what they believe, right? I'd rather hang out with them. Now, am I saying that I belong with them? No. But am I saying that I prefer their company? Definitely. So you could find me a bit all over. I don't find labeling myself conducive for anything. It actually, I think, would pigeonhole me and bogard me away from other wisdoms from different traditions, because I'm so convinced that I'm so right in this one belief, you know. So no, but if you had to twist my arm, um, maybe Taoist, maybe shamanistic. I don't know.
Yeah, it's
Ooh, there is the UU and there is Baha'i, UU being Unitarian Universalist and Baha'i being similar but not quite the same. And those are traditions that allow for all other traditions. So that's a great way to get a label but not have to wear it to the grave, you know?
yeah. And how did you get into all of this? Was there like some life-changing experience, or you're just interested just as a hobby?
Oh, yeah. I mean, as a kid, I would have um, extrasensory experiences that were inexplicable. Freaked out my mother, especially with that, my parents and those around me, and suppressed that for a while in my teenage years until it kind of came back in this upwelling. And the best way I could put it is what people would assert with psychic gifts, although I don't wish to tout that as something haughty or something that makes one superior in any sort of way, but it's a fascination and a tendency towards having internal experiences that aren't explainable in cultural conventions. So, lucid dreams, dreams that act prophetically, feelings of strong intuitions, erring on the side of clairvoyance, uncontrollable, involuntary clarity from time to time. All of these things make you want to ask why. Where is any information that can help me understand what I'm experiencing? And so that sent me down different paths to. So I think people are kind of predisposed to this fascination. I don't think that everybody is interested in such heady topics, because their experiences don't necessitate that. Everything's very simple. Um, and then there are others that aren't cut from that cloth.
I'm gonna have to ask you interpretation of two dreams that I had. Um, but yeah, I whenever I dive into these, what you might call petty. I know you're just being sarcastic, but like my first foray into hypnosis was on street hypnotism, and I saw one of my best friends. This was in high school, around 10th or 11th grade, and he was hypnotized, and he was doing the Macarena on stage in front of everyone, which he would never do. And so I went to the library, studied. They didn't have any how to hypnotize people types of books. They had self hypnosis, but all I did was change the first person to second person, and I was eventually able to hypnotize all my friends, and they were able to witness. I always had one of my other friends witness when I'm hypnotizing another, so they know that they could confirm that yeah, they were hypnotized. That was fascinating. I've had bodily pains, like pains in knees, joints, that wouldn't go away. Went to the doctor, they couldn't do anything. Massage therapists, they couldn't do anything. Acupuncture worked really well. Um, there's also a time where I went to a massage therapist, and I had, I was just kind of feeling cruddy because I had like stomach pain issues, and she was just working on my feet at the beginning, and she knew I had. She goes, "Wow, you have really bad stomach pains." I'm like, "How the heck do you know that from just touching my feet, massaging my feet?" And she says she studied, I think somewhere in Africa for like 15 years. The reflexology and stuff like that. So I never poo-pooed any of that stuff. I was that there's some basis because it works. Even though it's anecdotal, whatever science says, I don't care because they're just gonna say, well, that's just anecdotal, or that's just chance happening. They always throw all these things away, which science should be looking into more because it's really interesting, and a lot of people out there, especially now that we have social media, can let other people know about their experiences. And so how can they ignore hundreds if not thousands of people talking about these experiences, and they'll just call it an anomaly or something like that. Anyways, anything that else that you want to say as far as your history, anything that I talked about, as far as, because I know you talk
Well,
about such a broad range of topics.
yeah. So to start with that acupuncture thing, you're talking about a more. There is a sort of model for understanding, scientific, if you want to call it that, but it's an intuitive art, and that's the lacking measure in all of the scientific approach to things. So to accept these things into the mainstream might be what damns them. The fact that they're peripheral, and the fact that it allows them to do what they do in the way that they do it. Whereas if it's appropriated, then you might just see it turn into that classic like corporatized form as like pharmaceuticals have, for instance. So I'd be a little hesitant. I'm happy that these things are for those that are wishing to seek them and not too appropriated yet. Although I might be tending towards cynicism here. Um, and this is an old, people would praise the modern day medical advances, Western medicine, and think that back in the day, that we were so in the wrong when it came to medicine, when it came to well-being. Whereas you have these ancient shamans that would pull off modern day miracles casually, and there's no scientific explanation other than mind over matter, and we can't accept that, right? Because there has to be an answer, there has to be a minuteness about it that we could pick it apart, right?
the
um
the magic word is placebo in the scientific.
and see, that word in itself shows a fundamental lack of understanding in the community. Placebo immediately nullifies the whole questioning process, right? Oh, this much for placebo, and so. Oh, wait, what about that though? What's that about? Oh, the fact that somebody could heal themselves through belief is what I'm hearing here. What's, huh? Um, questioning the like over physicalization of medicinal treatment, how they need to cut you open, how they need to rip stuff out, right? Instead of like this whole forgotten realm of what do you think about it? You know, what mental toxicity have you inhibited through your life that created this neurosis? You know, what habits of yours is perpetuating this physical abnormality? You know, there's a lot of ways to dig deeper on that one.
Yeah. You're kind of nodding when I talked about the reflexology, how she knew I had
Oh,
severe stomach pains.
yeah. So you will find some people are more sensitive to their body's pains than others, right? And this seeking of a doctor, and oftentimes can lead to a fruitless quest that they don't know, their tests don't back up what you're feeling, and somehow that would make you feel invalid, as if you're not feeling what you're feeling. I mean, how can you question that, right?
Mm.
And oftentimes you're going to find that the people that can help you are these peripheral characters. And I had some strange. What happened is I would gain a bunch of tension along the right side of my body that I would just feel. There was no physical markers. I would just feel it. And I ended up going to an acupuncturist just to try it, right? See what's up. And he knew everything. He knew everything. He knew he could also give me answers, not infinite answers,
Mhm.
but answers. And did his his witchcraft, and I my chemistry has never returned to that state ever since. And I don't care to ask too many questions about it. I'm just eternally grateful that he exists, you know?
Yeah. Oh, one more thing. I had my palm read once by a gypsy, my one of my best friends, his aunt, and he said, "Yeah, she's a gypsy. She learned it from there." That's probably something they don't want publicly known.
Mm.
But yeah, it was weird. I think one of the things that there's so many things that she had. Oh, and I also had an astrology reading by an
Mm.
online friend. So I experienced as much as I can just to experience it. One of the things that I remember with the palm reading, she was saying that uh, I I tend to find things to be beautiful from a distance, but the closer I get to it, the more I may find some of the dirtiness. Like if I see a clean body of water, I get close to it. I'll just everything just seems to be not as clean as I thought it was. You know, that's the only thing that sticks out. And I remember you mentioning in one of your videos that palm reading with the left hand and the right hand differs, as one of them will stay the same throughout your life and one will change. So,
The art of the reader in palmistry is to speak that specific statement that changes you. There is a method to understanding it, but it is an intuitive art. So anyone can teach you the particularities, what to look for, how it works, how it's viewed in the woo-woo sense of things. Like for instance, the fingers are thought to be antennae that attract the subtle energies of the universe, and archetypally speaking, uh, each finger representing a different celestial body: Jupiter, Saturn, the sun here, and Mercury. Um, but the idea of the palm in itself should be a check-in with the individual, a type of status report, whereas usually people assume that the reader is going to tell them something divinatory about their future, and they assume that somehow that's going to be damning them, you know. Whereas in my practice, in my understanding of the discipline, you really have to stand out on a leg to assume that. And you're also making a causal statement about the fact you're assuming that reality is fatalism, that it's all deterministic, that it's set. You have no free will, and this is what's going to happen to you. And that's quite a philosophical leap. But yeah, that, palms, tarot, divination, mostly have been undercredited by modern society. These are all just different ways of checking in with yourself, of giving you a certain measure of certainty in this world, until it starts bleeding into trying to rip out answers through extra occult means, and then you're starting to get into the demonic and all that sort of stuff. But the hands, the cards, even tea leaves, I mean, what have you, right?
Yeah.
They used to rip up the entrails of fish to look what's happening.
I fish a lot, so I wonder if that's gonna. I might try that. I've never tried.
Know what you're looking for.
Yeah, I've never tried tarot. I have done ayahuasca 3 times on my own. Have you done anything like that? Taking psychedelics or something like that and if you want to describe your experiences. I know those are mostly personal things, but feel free if you want to share.
All I really would want to say is that sacred medicines, the damning of sacred medicines is disturbing in the modern day, and the fact that it's so accepted that they're this taboo is disturbing. And my personal view on it is that it is a catalyst. It is an intensifier of your progression in life, of your self-realization, your self-actualization. If you are ready, if the ground is set in you and you are ready for a kick in the pants, it will be your kick in the pants if you're ready for it. They're using, they're now integrating it in with treating, PTSD, right? And
severe drug addiction. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. But in both these cases, in my mind, it will only work if this person is ready, if they're ready for it. If they're still dealing with these things, if they still can't put this down, no dice. But a great light show.
Yeah.
It will do the trick. It will work. It's your own chemicals, like psilocybin, whatnot, right? It's not the thing in itself. It's that it's teasing out your dimethyltryptamine, your inner chemistry. And so it's not a foreign body. It's you. It's working you out of you. And I think how painfully natural that should be regarded. Yeah.
I would have to totally agree with you. When I took my ayahuasca experiences, the first time I loved it, and the second time it really kicked my butt because I think it was trying to point something out. Like, all right, the first trip was just an introduction. Now this is boot camp. It's not the sign up. Where you go to the recruiter and you get to stay in a hotel room and stuff. This is actual boot camp. And then, my third ayahuasca experience, like the time between my first and my second was like, I think less than a week or two, because I wanted to see what happened again. Second one, I don't think I took my third one for a couple months, if not a year. But yeah, I realized after my second one, the things I need to work on. It wasn't like I need to do or I need to, I could ignore it. It didn't matter if I did or not. And so the third time I felt like, okay, I think I understood. Now I know I may go back to a really bad experience like that second one. But why would I want to why wouldn't I want to go back to a horrible experience? I think a lot of people would say, no, I'm done after that second trip. So I went back for the third time. I was like, okay, I think I understand. I did some of the things that, was revealed, I guess. And third one wasn't that bad. It was still bad, but like there's just so much. Like it told me, or however way it states things. So many distractions out there, and I'm still failing at some of them. But the most important thing is I understand what they are, and there's this tremendous bliss that I felt during it, even though there was hardship getting to that point. And it's it's like it told me I didn't have to work on it anymore. So I don't need to take ayahuasca again. If I want to, I don't know what happens, but it's like no, you're done. I think you learned the lesson that needs to be learned. And it's such a great teacher, and that's one of the things. It's like I could study forever, all these things, self-help, history, medicine. Nothing will teach you as much as this medicine did.
It makes you live it. That's the difference. You experience, right? Because it's all, you can know things, but it's an entirely different thing to know things, right? In your heart, to experience it. It's plunging you into your own subconscious. I mean, that's you're gonna come up with something in those muddy waters. And the messages are a primal truth. If you're in deep enough, it's always going to say the same things, no matter what the substance. Really, we are all one, and also you're okay, you're fine, right? Like, how reassuring.
Yeah.
And then you get back out and you're like, I'm not okay, I gotta fix myself. But I also want to say on this topic, because I feel like the culture that are really into psychedelics, there is some toxicity in this, and that is the over dependency on psychedelics. And the only reason I bring this up is because this assumption that the only way that you can have ecstatic experiences is through the plant, and then you are gaining a dependency on the plant. This should come to you serendipitously, organically. If you're trying to keep pushing that button, it won't play dice.
Oh,
It
yeah.
will not play dice with you. And you can have mind-altering experiences, and this isn't me preaching meditation or anything, but through transient states, through hypnagogic states, you can reach near to that level, to the point where you're questioning reality's solidity. So there's more than one way to Mecca, but that is your rocket ship. And so respect it as a rocket ship, like it's not a climb, it's a cannon, dude.
Yeah. The ways I guess I get to them are similar points is after my ayahuasca experiences and understanding of things a little bit better, actually a lot better, I guess. I noticed synchronicities a lot more. Like that should not have happened. Scientifically, if I try to explain it, I'd just be called a nut. But it's, you can't ignore it. I mean, a true scientist wouldn't ignore data, right? They could say that data is anomalous, but it should still be accounted for. And if there's another anomaly similar to it, well, you've got to account for that too, because it's messing up your potential result that you want, not necessarily the result that you get. And lucid dreaming. I've had a lot more lucid dreaming. I feel like I'm actually there. And then I wake up and it's like, oh, wait, I'm not there. And there's also, like, I don't know what else to call it, like revelations or something. I know it's not a dream, but it's like the dream trying to tell me something, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it. So I told you earlier. So one of them is a red and a blue moon. I made a video. I don't know. I have to refer back to video exactly what else happened. The other dream is there's a ninth wheel or circle or whatever, and that's can be broken. So I don't know what you think of those two. dream interpretations.
Well, okay. I'm not going to be very satisfactory right now because two things. Asking other people about what you're experiencing in your own subconscious, is that not a little silly?
Yeah.
But, and that's not to belittle it at all, because chances are somebody will serendipitously come along later in the line, and probably say something that's nothing near to that story, but it will perfectly, and with sacred medicine experiences, with lucid dreaming, and in these instances of these internal journeys, we oftentimes think that we need the answers immediately, and we go on this fever chase to try to find anything we can get on it, right? But the fact of the matter is that it's a subconscious programming. You consciously experienced it, yes, but what the work is really happening below your foundation, you know? So for you to know it with your head above the water, it's a tricky notion. And normally we will only understand these things in time. And we won't understand them because we're seeking the answers. It will come to us when we're not seeking the answers. And we're lucky, and gratitude when we do, right? But superficially, if you're going to talk about the red and the blue moon, that would assumably, like Jungian dream interpretation, right? Assumably would represent a polarization of yourself in some form, that representing two different aspects of you, and whatever they were doing in the dream, or whatever they represented, or whatever they felt, would give you more analogy to, you know, discern from. Yeah, dreams are real fickle though.
Yeah.
Real fickle, and nobody can explain that in the scientific community. Actually, they can give you these terribly deflating explanations, and you know that's not it. You know it's not it.
I think the best explanation science gave to what dreams are is just a trash mechanism for your unconscious thoughts, right?
Well, again, that's deflating. That's not juicy at all. You know, it needs, it feels, you experience it. If that's what, if we could throw away that explanation of dreams so readily, then reality, in my experience of the waking world, is just a trash heap of chemicals too, right? Like, gosh. It takes all manner of more significant explanation and deflates it. There should be a taste of something more meaningful to it, and I don't care how you get that explanation, just as long as it is more meaningful than that, because science will always degrade it. It has no questions. It answers no questions of why. It only answers hows, and what we want to know is why. So what can science do? Nothing. So shut up, you know? Anyway, there's my cynicism.
I remember how I found your channel now. All right. So I'm reflecting about me growing up and like the religious. I was never into religion. Yeah, I think I was baptized too because of my parents at a young age, but it's not like I cared for the church. But I think when I reflect now, I was always a paganist at heart, and like paganism is just a broad spectrum right now. But as I study more into different religions, and this is my second time, I did it when I was like around 20. Now I'm like in my 40s, and you know, I kind of more geared towards Taoism and shamanism sorry now. And I used to like poo-poo shamanism in, you know, in the past, but now it's like no, very nature oriented, and I was looking into the Bon. I don't, you know, because I thought
Tibetan shamanism.
Yeah, Tibetan shamanism is like I never heard of it before. It's like, why didn't I hear about it before? And then so I was watching a couple of videos. There's not much.
No.
You can find, and one of your videos actually, he's just started talking about the Bon shamanism, and I was like, wow, okay, so
casual.
Yeah, I'm gonna listen to what this person has to say. Yeah, so
So one of the only places in the world where you can find these shamans had crafted an entire map of the multiverse, or like, it's as if they took so many sacred journeys that they ended up being able to map where they were in these internal journeys. So you're having a dream and then you know where it is, like where, like a map. And it's fascinating because the amount of work and the amount of inner knowing to even attempt that is amazing. And you're right, though, they know there is not so much to know about them, and that's often the cases in history when it comes to like the most interesting people, is because they're the ones that I don't want to say lost, because that puts a certain paradigm on the whole thing. It's not that they lost, it's that they were unwilling to fight on the same vicious unga bunga level that was brought to them.
Mhm.
And you know, they have been overshadowed in this way by time, by rulers in that I mean, look at Tibet. Still, that's a very taboo topic.
Yeah.
um but they still have records. They still have like the oldest books, papyri in the world, just sitting there. They pull it off the shelf for you.
Yeah. It's fascinating what you'll run into when you just kind of. It's not even like really going deep. It's just like, wow, I never heard of this. I've never seen this before. Let me look into it. And you notice, like, wow, nobody knows anything about this, right? Um, so it's I that's what I love about your channel, is like you bring forth a lot of some of the things that were lost. I guess most people would call it esoteric. A lot of content creators on YouTube and elsewhere, they focus more on the occult and like the either secret societies. You know, they focus more on that and not the religious and spiritual aspects of the occult and esoteric, and the symbolic. Like a lot of them will focus on symbology and not necessarily the spiritual significance of the symbology. Instead, it's the ritualistic side of the symbology that they focus on. So um, would you care to share some of that
Yeah.
insight? Uh, yeah, like when I said earlier, let me cross my fingers. You know, even though I don't believe in the crossing the fingers, like you know,
So
the
we
meanings
need
can be.
somebody to be a guide here. We need somebody to be a Sherpa. You know, we need somebody who will translate. You know, and not just every technical industry in the world, and by extension, every religious model of the past, spiritual model of the past, has its own nomenclature, has its own wording, its lingo, its inner phrasing. And so what you need is, like, I could just blab to you about what the Masons are saying to each other or what have you, but that's not going to make any sense. And what you want to do, right, is you want to take the time and translate. Yes, we are speaking the same language, but we're not speaking the same language. You know, it's about what that word means. And that gets into the nature of words, which is a tremendously fun conversation to have.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of interesting notes that fly by us that we never care to pay attention to. The cult of Mithras is obviously one of the more interesting digs when it comes to esotericism. And if you'd seen that one, then you know the salute, the old military salute that's still in action, is an act of shielding the rays of the sun from the eyes of Mithras, the sun god. So in shielding your eyes, you're saying your superior, or your superior is so bright, is so illume, is so woke that you need to, you know, pay respect, right?
Hmm.
And still yet we're doing this. And then, you know, in the same vein, you know, their handshakes, right, was originally, it wasn't always around. It was originally the bonding, and Mithras is the god of contracts. So when they would shake the hands, this was their oath. their oath to each other. And this just eventually became so washed out and so generalized that everybody does it now, and they don't know that they're partaking in an ancient esoteric, like, I don't know, act.
Yeah.
And it's really, all this stuff is hidden in plain sight. It's everywhere, but we never ask any questions about it. We just, for whatever reason, we just think that's random, whatever, or we just don't care. We just don't care enough.
Yeah.
And so, like, when you keep prodding, there's a lot of whys that can be answered, and then it becomes so clear that it hurts. But this stuff isn't hidden. When people think of the occult, when they think of esotericism, they think that they have to join a brotherhood or something. They think they have to, like, go through these, like, dark rituals, they have to swear their life to something. But the glory of the modern day is that we are in a tremendous unveiling. We are in a tremendous renaissance. The age of information is a curse and is a blessing. And the blessing of this is that this stuff is accessible. You can look into it, but you have to look into it. You have to care enough. You have to know how to research. You have to be able to discern what's bullshit and what's not. And just as a last note to kind of stop me, but how to discern what isn't and what is truth in this matter is that you have to spread out your sources. And also, who is this person bringing this information? Do they have a bias? Do they have a goal? Are they trying to, because a lot of these spiritual community type folks, what they really want is they're on their own grandiosity. They really want to appear as a gatekeeper, that I am the woke one. I am the woke one. And you should listen to me, right? And that right away can tell you, grain of salt.
Mm-hmm.
Grain of salt. Very cherry picking on this one, because unfortunately, these topics have always attracted egomaniacs. And do I have to mention about how conceited and sociopathic elitism is? I mean, seriously? Gosh. I should stop myself there.
No, like I'd have fun conversations with you on some of your videos, 'cause, like, just your enthusiasm, like the apocalypse, end of the world type of scenario.
Oh God, yeah.
And people get the whole term for apocalypse wrong, right? They think it's the end of the world, destruction of the world. It's just an unveiling. And one of the things I do wanted to talk to you about, because it's always been on my mind, is authority, right? We have all these authority figures, elitism. And the term prophet is someone who understands the will of God. And so how do you verify someone who knows the will of God? You'd have to know someone who knows the will of God. So you have to have another prophet. Or like... So you'd have to have a prophet to verify another prophet that that's the will of God. But how did that person originally, how do you know if that person's idea of will of God is true? You need another prophet. So you'd have all these prophets all over the place. And, how do you verify them if you're not a prophet? And it's like, why not just have God tell you what his or her will is anyway? Why go through all this trouble? And so people have a hard time just understanding it. It's like, they either say it's just the way it always is, or God obviously chose this person because it's in this book, right?
There's a few things to unravel there. Yeah. For one, I try to avoid using the term God quite a bit because of what people charge that word with, what they mean by it versus what I might mean by it, right? So that's one thing. But when it comes to how to register someone who is a prophet, how to discern if they are or are not. And one way to know if somebody is being a divine channel is it does nothing for them. It ruins their life. It doesn't serve them. They serve. And this truth, fundamental truth, and this like divine channeling is humbling. You are not great. You know, if they're real, they're a vessel for what is great. They themselves, no. So if they say, I am the prophet, right? Again, they have achieved a wisdom and they've contorted it in such a way that it serves them. Where in truth, if it's really like a true prophet, it's in service to whatever, right? And normally this means, like, look at Giordano Bruno as a great example. What he said about the sun being that all the stars were also suns and that we are a part of the multifaceted web of the cosmos was heresy. And that vision that came to him, for him to say that, means that he will die. He said it knowing that he is going to die. They will kill him. Was that serving his ego? No, not at all. But he did it. And so that's how you know. That's how you know. They ruined what good lives they had in order to be a vessel, to be a vessel for truth in this way. And that never ends nice. It never ends nice.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to happen these days. Like all the people who predict the end of the world, they get it wrong. They go, wait, it's gonna miscalculated. It's gonna end here.
It's so absurd.
And people still follow the same person who is wrong multiple times.
They fall for it every generation, multiple times in every generation. Yeah. Always. It's always been ending. It's always ending.
It's always ending.
You should be afraid. You should be really afraid.
It's like, I want to put a wager on someone. It's like, all right, everything I have for everything you have, that the world's not going to end, right? They're never going to make that bet.
I can't remember who the name of the guy is, but he came out multiple times in our lifetime. Started in the 90s and really shot up around 2010. And he made so much money off these. I mean, the amount of people that he attracted to his, like, evangelicalism made him rich. So the world didn't actually need to end. It just served its purpose, and he can go disappear in the shadows counting his dollars, you know.
It's like, I was wrong, you know. It happens.
Sorry, slipped up this time. I know I said a lot of things, but
yeah.
And it's not new. It's not original. It's painfully unoriginal.
Yeah.
Painfully.
And nothing happens to these people, you know, not by any government entity or other religions. It's always the little person that gets ostracized. And another fascinating thing that I like about your channel is some of the written history. You know, I don't agree with the way history is written, recorded, and stuff. I mean, maybe a story might be true, but you know, the person telling it and it really happened that way. But you know, I may not even trust that person, but I may not trust the editors. I may not trust the publisher. Right? They all have their own narrative agenda. Yeah. There you go. And but yeah, one of the things is, like, whenever I thought about, you know, all the persecution in the past I always thought the Spanish Inquisition, right? I didn't think about that there was an Inquisition that wasn't Spanish, you know, that stuff was going on back then. And yeah, I just like the information. But also, what are your thoughts on, because I always tend to think every religion out there, just like the end of the world is always getting worse. Even Western religion or Eastern religion, Eastern philosophy, the world is always getting worse until something happens and the world gets good again, right? We're in this golden age, and then it's going to go bad again. Like, the cycle of everything in the past was really great, and everything in the future is going to get really worse. Now, I have this thing called vicious cycles, you know, kind of, it just, sometimes your thoughts perpetuate what's going to happen, and therefore it just perpetuates, you know. Alan Watts goes over it many times, and other people. And I just think, well, if people keep thinking with all these religions and philosophies that the world always gets worse, and then all of a sudden it's gonna miraculously become good again, and it's gonna get worse again, then it's gonna happen, right?
Yes, manifestation, right? Like you're cooking it up,
Mm-hmm.
like this is what you want, you'll get it, and in that way reality is reciprocal to the collective will of the people. What kind of show do you want? Oh, you want this? Are you sure you want this show? But to argue against this narrative of the world's getting worse, I fully understand that calamities and war is still happening, but in margin, it seems to be significantly less. If the indication of something positive of the world is people being in the know, having access to knowledge, literacy rates globally are higher than they've ever been. This seems to be a good indication of upward mobility, that things are getting better. However, it will never be perfect. And in that sense, our threshold for suffering gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So then we start getting nitpicky about like anal stuff, like hyper neurotic stuff, right? So we're never going to be happy because we need things to be wrong. And that's the other, way of dissecting this whole thing. But on the former topic, it's a good story to think that the world, like if I was going to craft a story, right? Things got to get bad and then there's a payoff. There's relief, right? What a great story arc. It's classic story arc, right? And is that not a coincidence in some form? But it does go way back in our history, and you got to look at Hinduism and Jainism when they're talking about the yugas. And that's the whole cycle, the cyclical time of reaching the Kali Yuga, and then it works its way up to utopia, and then it works its way down again. So this is something that's been in us for a long time. Why we're so preoccupied with what will be and not what is another interesting question, right? Like, we're not going to be there, or we always want to be there. We always like, now's the time because we want to be there, like kind of like masochistically,
Yeah.
like I want to watch it all burn. Isn't that a little messed up?
Yeah.
Instead of like, kind of like the whole sacred medicine thing too, where yet again, what if it was more like, it's all right, like I'm here and what will present itself to me, I'll deal with. You don't hear about that much, but it sounds a lot more spiritual than in 1,000 years from now, fire and brimstone. That's not very spiritual. That's like the opposite. It's fear mongering sort of stuff. So there's a lot to dissect there.
Yeah.
I find it, I'm not saying curses be, let this all go, because in my mind, it's a great show. Like I love hearing it. Don't get me wrong. It's like, how are they going to mix this DJ remix again? Like,
Yeah.
are they going to add like some house dub to it this time? Like maybe some maracas, right? Like, oh, that's an interesting twist. So I don't mean to sound like too, like you say, poo poo on it, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm okay. I know it seems bad that I'm saying this, that it's okay that all these things are occurring. It's just be a part of it, enjoy it. It's like, how can you enjoy all these bad things going on? Well, I can't explain it to you, but you'll understand sometime, right?
So to wrap it up very succinctly, there is a purging. All the great things that have ever happened to you in your life, all the positive characteristics that you've won, have been earned through suffering. That is the harsh truth of it all. Somebody had a problem drinking too much in their teenage years. What did they have to do? They had to drink a lot. And then at some point, they just found themselves not doing that so much anymore. Or with drugs similarly. And they didn't force that decision, but they reached the pinnacle of suffering where finally it gave way and change organically came through. And now they don't even recognize that part of themselves anymore. They find it hard to identify with that self anymore. And it's not possible to go backwards. And in the same way, society at large, collectively, is going through this purging, this tremendous purging, and it's suffering. And what does
Mm-hmm.
suffering bring? It brings relief. It brings gratitude. It goes, first you tense up. So, you know, here's how you act it out. You ball your hands up as firm as you can, right? For as long as you can. And then you just do this. And then it's like, oh, what a relief.
Yeah.
That's the gig. That's, make it more complex than that, but that's the thing, you
Yeah.
know? So there is a purpose, is the important part to it. It's
Yeah.
a necessity. It's not a fluke, negligible abortion of an absurdity, you know? It is yin yang, man. It's necessity.
Yeah. It reminds me of someone that I used to talk with. He follows the left-hand path. That's his voyage, and the stuff that's going on. He wants to accelerate it, because if we accelerate the bad stuff, then we hurry up and get to the good stuff. And people will probably find that, no, that's not a good idea. It's like, well, why prolong the bad stuff, right? So everyone has this logic, and it's just fascinating how everyone just kind of thinks about how things are, and I can't disagree with it. Sounds good in retrospect. You know, you don't want to, you know, if you're gonna go through 5 years of pain, or you could go through all that in one day, what would you pick? I think I would pick the one day. So, you know, as much as I disagree with it, I probably have to also agree with it. You know,
It's in the hands of everybody, really.
mm-hmm.
You know, it's not this is a group project, people, you know. And whatever whatever the summative nature of all of our actions is, you know, because you as a person, you're just along for the ride, and you won't be along here forever. You know, you got a little blip to take a look, and then the show goes on, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have to make it so personal sometimes too, you know, like, I'm only here for a small window, you know. I'll say my 2 cents, and then you know, close the curtain. But
Yeah. It's like the people wanting to, like, I think it's Alan Watts that came up with it. Other people probably too. Is like, why would anyone want to live forever, right? You're just gonna go through the pain of everyone you care about dying. You know, it's, people think it's a blessing, but they don't think about the curse aspect of it. And you know, things will get so boring. You're just like, ugh, you know, this is just same thing over again. I'm waiting for that twist. So, you know, it's like, I don't know why anyone would want to live forever.
it's really something that's been forgotten by our cultural indoctrinations. You know, we aren't taught any way of understanding death. We're taught to neglect it, to fear it. And this wasn't always true by any means. You know, the general pagan shaman animistic approach is that it's necessitated, that everything is only becoming fresh by allowance of death, and that death is a necessary part of the circle, you know, that to become youthful requires death. To let things breathe, to let them feel free, is to let them go. And so this is a very understanding approach. And in France, and it kind of popularized elsewhere, but they brought this thing back called the Death Cafe, where they kind of host a area where people just openly talk about death, everything that they think about death. And this is the first kind of totem, or the first kind of mark of this bringing it back, or this countercultural approach to the Western conception of what death entails. And of course, there's a lot of ways to nerd out about the aftermath of death, you know, the afterlife, and that's what's kept the different variations and characteristics of spiritual traditions running rampant for who knows how long, you know.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. I kind of regard, like, if I was gonna label myself, it's always the opposite. Like, I always thought I was agnostic, but now I realize I'm more of an agnostic gnostic. I know it seems like two contradicting terms, but I also like to say it as I know that I don't know, but I also don't know that I know. But
Nice.
in all, what does it matter, right?
Classic Socrates.
Yeah. And like I tend to notice these things where it's like I kind of want to die, not like I want to suicide. It's like I want to embrace death, see what happens next, and have a release from all the things that I don't like about where this is, whatever it is. But and I won't, I mean, my next life, if I have one, maybe I won't wear my shirt inside out and backwards all the time. I just noticed that. Uh, but every time I'm ready for it, it's okay if it happens. Life brings me something that I really want to stay here for. Family, wife, children, friends, and it's like, dang it, now it's harder to leave. How did this happen? How did my life get better when I was just ready to let it all go? And it feels like something is out there saying, no, we don't want you to go. We need you around. Therefore, we're going to give you something to stay for. It's like, I didn't really ask for it. I was just ready to go. And, so it feels like maybe some entity. That's why I feel like it's kind of like a matrix thing. It's like, we want you to stay in this program. So if we're going to give you something nice, because it's been tough for you. So it's like, well, dang it. No.
So there's a few things there. I want to comment real quick on the whole simulation thing because I haven't got to in my course yet.
Yeah.
I think it's painfully obvious that since computers have become a big part of our lives, that now we're pulling that in trying to explain the everything. I think it's truly that simple, like in things that we were obsessed with before, like went way back when nature was everything, we used nature to understand everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then now we have computers, and now we're using computers to understand everything, right? And so to say that the computers are the real deal, about this whole thing, I think is just oh, great. But I like this note about, that we're charged with a certain amount of time, we're charged with like being in certain places at certain times, we really don't, we do have a choice, but we don't have a choice. It's this paradoxical mishmash of that, where there's something that we need to see through. And there are different explanations to this in different traditions, but without us jumping into one dogma or another, it's just to say that it's set, it's good. And even certain tragedies that seem to have no purpose, we can't judge that. We don't know the implications. We see a pinprick of the thing, right? And we think we have the audacity to judge what things have purpose and what things don't have purpose, right? The analogy that an old shaman, who's a medicine man, gave is he always would talk about the bees, and he would say, like, do you think like all the bee knows is that I gotta go get this and bring it back to that lady, and then maybe she might, pay attention to me. And little did that bee know or care that along the way it was spreading pollen to everything around it. Not a clue. Doesn't need to have a clue, but is doing it. And now you look at yourself, right? And it's like, meaningless, purposeless, right? Nonsense. And you don't know. You have no idea. Most of the time when you've had the biggest impact on somebody, you don't even remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. We're so judgy in that way, right? Like, what am I here for? But you can't say what that's all about.
I like that analogy. The pollen that we have on us, we don't know about, but Yeah.
Yeah, not to mention that we are constantly participating in extrasensory phenomena beyond our conception. No, our scientific tools have not understood and interpreted all the subtle energies that are present. No, we can't have known everything that is participatory in all directions at all times. Like what if I'm partaking in tremendously in a substance or in a dimensionality utterly beyond my conception, and I'm like the bee's knees there,
Yeah.
like I don't know. I don't know.
And when you're talking about the whole you have to decide thing, I'm not sure if it's similar, but I've uh again, the duality of things, I try not to go there, but it's like I always find belief of as being, someone who clings onto things and doesn't let go, whereas faith is letting go and not clinging on. And like death as being a release if things aren't good. What I realized is there are certain things that I'm fighting inside my head or since childhood, or all these inner demons, just as a saying, not necessarily those things, but it's like if I just let it go, it's like someone giving you a program, like in the Matrix. And again, Matrix now everyone thinks of like the movie and the simulation, whereas Matrix before was the womb, right? You're in a womb. But so I'm given a program early on. It's like, well, I don't want to follow that program. I want this free will. I want this thing. It's like, well, no, there's this program. Don't fight the program. You're programmed for it. This is what you're supposed to do. And it's like, all right, finally, I'm like, all right, screw it. I'm going to follow a program, see what happens. And it's like, well, it's this big release. It's like, I don't know. It's like you want to be free, but being free to accept that program is also part of being free. But since you're also following the program, well, things are going to go smoothly for you, even though you may not think it, as far as like the way society and culture and things like that, like they go, well, if someone else saw how I am and living, right, they go, how is this success? It's like the success is for me is happiness, contentness, enjoying life, enjoying other people who are enjoying life. And it's like I didn't enjoy that before, so this is success. I had money, I had position. It's like that didn't bring me like happiness and joy. So
Yep.
I find this as success culturally. Especially in America, that would not be success at all, right?
Yeah, there's a lot to dissect on that one. I think to err on the side of letting go is always a safer measure. I think that culturally we are way too yang oriented, not yin. So we tend to always like crush things with an obsession, a preoccupation, and we always need to do something. And little did we know that a lot of the enjoyment of life is in the yin, is in the not doing, and in a mindful way, not and in a mindless way. There's another paradox for you.
Yeah.
But I think that to err on the side of letting go, and most of that is to stop always projecting as to what we think we want, right? And most of the time, if we really thought it through, we don't want those things, but we like to spin our wheels around because we got something that we gotta fix, which again necessitates the fact that everything's wrong, and then we get to be that righteous knight that charges in and saves everything, right? How convenient. But I don't know, there's a lot to say about a measure of a person and how centered they are. And when I say self-centered, I just mean centered, like they're hard to mess with. They're very solid. Is how much uncertainty they allow in themselves. like how much they can tolerate. If you question somebody who's an authority on something, who's got it all figured out, they can't handle that uncertainty at all, right?
Yeah.
At all. And that is a tremendous indication of where this person's at versus somebody else where they've let go of so much, right? They've let go of so much and they have a tremendous threshold for uncertainty. And they are, you know, they're smiling, they're calm, like perpetually, you know? It's like where, and somebody thinks it has something to do with pills or something, right?
Yeah.
Like, and they earned that through letting go, through letting it be, right? And that's the contradiction. That's the paradoxical nature that Buddhism asserts, right? They want to stop wanting. You know, what do I do about that? You know,
Yeah.
want, right?
Because wanting to stop wanting, you're still wanting. Yeah.
It comes to you through experience. You know, we try to intellectualize these things, but really it's just like it's the progression. You slowly reach these states through improving yourself. So this is the form it takes. Something big is being cooked up. There's a type of crossroads. These are intense times for people, intense times in the world where they're like about to get a promotion or about to get fired or they're about to get in a relationship. You feel it. There's a crossroads. And people do one of three things. They either do something completely new. They press forward in something that they're not familiar with. That is an indication of growth. This is unfamiliar territory, but it's the hardest decision to make. It's the one we don't want to make. And that's letting go right there. Versus most of the time, it's the alternatives are stasis or retro, the repression. They return to former cycles. They go backwards, right? And then they start to look like they did 5 years ago or something, you know? And you can tell the difference in these people from your past. Who's the one that seems that are unfamiliar? They don't even seem like themselves anymore. And that's beautiful versus the ones that look exactly the same. They're doing the exact same things. They're not letting go of anything. They're holding tightly. You know, the same things will bug them ad infinitum if you know,
Yeah.
if you stick around.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could ramble about that one quite a bit, but you can tell, people can tell.
Yeah,
You
just
should look uncharacteristic to yourself and everybody else.
yeah, and just the demeanor, like talking to you, you're open. You're like an open book, and you know, it's a lot of people will be a little bit closed off or you know hesitant. Like, what's this guy about? What's he trying to do? What's his angle? Right. But yeah, it's been an hour and almost 15 minutes. I know time flies. Do you want to end the session? Go on a little bit more? Up to you. We can always have future conversations and have it tied to something more specific.
Yeah. Yes to everything. I'm open to it. Haha. If you had any more questions written down, I'm down to go over something else. We can kind of call it end at that. It's whatever you feel.
Sure. Let's do one more. Just because there's just a lot to go over.
Yeah.
Well, shoot. The thing is, one more always dives into more. So,
well, I'll cut it off arbitrarily.
Okay. The many worlds aspect from a lot of mythology. What do you think about that as far as, for me, like if I was going to tell a story, I would feel as though our current situation is all the worlds were forced into one, and just to see if this one new world is worth keeping or not. Right? It's like once it's over, people go back to their own worlds, but people who want to stay, they form a new one. You know, it's just I don't know.
Ooh, yeah. There's a lot of approaches here. So we all think we live in the same world, but we only live in our worlds. I, appearing to you now, am a character in your play. I am in your world. I have no existence of myself, right? I'm just here to show up to you and to say some things, and then there I go, right?
Yeah.
I don't exist, right? So no, this is your world. Everybody's in their world. We've never been outside of here. This is as far as you go. Everybody. And so we think to say that we're in the same world, no, we're in many worlds.
As many
But
as the stars.
to blow that up further and to approach it from a different angle, in the spiritual traditions, there is the the Godhead that dismembers themselves, and that becomes the cosmos, right? So it's the fracturing of the Godhead, in order to experience themselves, him, herself, in the multifarious multiplicity of infinite different variations. And so in this way, then yes, there's the me that is here, there's the me that's not here, there's the me blah 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 blah, right? And then you have to get to other levels, and everybody is me and you are me and I am you and blah blah blah, and that's all true. So yes to the many worlds theory, right? Like on the practical level, in the macrocosm, like I'm saying here, and just go outside and look at other people, there's the many worlds, but on the bigger scale, not the micro but the macro, then we're talking of spiritual affairs, and the fact that consciousness is a shattering, and that that the story of life and the story of the universe can only go on because of the miscommunication between all the different fractured natures of one whole Godhead, right? That you're a part of it, that I'm a part of it, and the fact that it's broken and that we can only miscommunicate with each other means that the show must go on. Because if we were all in perfect communication on the most universal truth level, there'd be nothing to do.
It'd be
It's all
boring.
done.
Yeah.
It's all completed. Yeah. And the only this is the analogy that I've used before, is that it's equivalent to the Godhead being a child and making a sand castle only to knock it down so he can make it again.
Yeah.
Like that's the story of not just human history, but existence of itself. And that's, what more answers do you need? I mean, that's one very more spiritual way of approaching the now scientific, theoretical, quantum physics entertainment of, are there other dimensions? It's like, yeah, of course.
I mean, yeah, think of just like I guess, was it, yeah, the Tao. Is it Taoist or Hindu? Well, there's so much of a mix, but like, yeah, it's like Leela, the divine play, and
that's what they meant by Maya. That's what
Yeah.
they meant by everything is Maya, everything's illusion, is that fracturing aspect, the fracturing of the Brahman.
And if you were perfect, if you were the Godhead, whatever that term that you want to say, the Tao, the source, what have you, like, you would be bored. You know everything. There's no one else to play against.
It's done.
Yeah. And you don't, like, when you play a game, you don't want to play against someone who always wins. You want to win sometime. You also, may be good to win all the time, but then you also are afraid to lose, so you'll stop playing. But then the whole point is to play and enjoy yourself, right?
So, yeah, I think Alan Watts did it really well when he was talking about that Hindu story of how the dreamer controls the dreams, right? And decides, oh, I need somebody that sometimes makes it so I don't get what I want. Oh, and then I need to forget the fact that I'm dreaming in order for the dream to go on, right? So it doesn't get boring. So that one's a great analogy. But then there's this aspect that you find in also Kabbalism, in the deepest esotericism, of them wanting to return to Keter, or the Godhead. And the idea here is that to return to it means that you're nothing. And by that, we mean that here we have a body and we have a soul that is individuated. You get to the higher planes and you have a soul, but not a body that's individuated. But if you get to the spirit planes, right, and you're ascending, then your soul is not individual, and it joins the pool of cosmic existence. And in that way, you are what you think you are is a droplet off of the ocean. And you're deciding to throw yourself back into that ocean. You're not you. You are it. There is no you. and there's no game to play. There's no separateness. There's no Maya.
Yeah.
And that's what we want, but also we fear at the same time. It's so
Yeah.
twisted. It's
Yeah.
so twisted.
And that's why in a lot of these philosophies or spiritualities, not necessarily maybe some religions, is really the focus on creativity, because we want to play new games. We don't want to just play chess for eternity. we want to, because we know all the moves, and it's gonna, it's just patterns and it's memorization, and it no longer gets fun. The purpose of chess is fun. And like all these other games, people now, there's all these pro leagues and all this competition. People want to win, and they'll actually buy hacking software to cheat in order to win, and they think that's
everything
fun.
that will be done, can be done, will be done, right? Everything, it's entropy, and that's what makes it saucy, right? That's what makes it worth the go, that keeps us entertained enough, right? Is that we keep making it more and more convoluted. Terrence McKenna does a great job at elaborating on that, right? Like how everything is exponentially faster because we gotta make it spicier. But anyhow, I think we should probably cut it quits at that, because otherwise we'll just keep trailing, right?
Yeah, I know. Anyways, thank you for coming on. Definitely do this again sometime. We could do more focused conversations too.
All right.
Before we go, again, state your website.
CG Dahlin. CG Dahlin. CGDAHLIN. Just look up my YouTube channel. That's where you're going to find me. If you want to get a hold of me, just comment in the comment sections. I will get back to you.
And you said you published something. That's why you use that name. Do you have a book?
Yeah, I have several books of anthologies of, well, it's not on this topics that I've been speaking to. It's all poetry and short stories. So I've authored or more like edited a few anthologies, and I've written a few poetry books as well. But you can find that the same, CG Dahlin. Look that up online or Amazon or what have you, and you can go down that treasure trail.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for showing up. You could stay for a little bit while I end the show.
And go ahead and end it. I'll take a little break.
All right, thanks.